a new tool that we have called Zone Calculator.
Well, thanks, Judy, for that introduction. And yes, today both Sandy and I are here. This is Cheryl speaking to talk about the new product that we're just releasing called Zone Calculator. And this is a product that we've done customs for customers, a few customers on this, and decided that, yep, we should get it bundled together and get general setup options for everyone that wants to use this product. So Sandy and I are very excited to get this rolled out. And Sandy, you're going to be watching our question panel, right, and our chat panel in case anyone's got questions or just wants to comment on something.
Yep, I sure am. And I am excited about this tool. We've been waiting for this.
Yes, excited to get this out. So let's get started. So first off, we're going to talk about what is Zone Calculator. So basically, Zone Calculator as a product will allow you to measure how far you are from a service hub, we'll call it, or your service centers. And you can put your service centers in setup, and then with each of your customers' locations, you get to run the tool and it'll come up and say, this particular customer location is, round trip, let's say it's 50 miles from your closest service center, because it'll determine what is the closest service center for you. So you don't have to tell it, this group of customers, compare it to this service center. It'll actually run it against all your service centers and figure out which one's the closest and assign the zone that you say, from your user-defined setup, that zone 1's going to be, let's say, up to 50 miles, zone 2 is up to 100 miles. So it'll calculate that round trip for you and come back and assign a zone onto the customer location record. And so from there, you can use that information in Autocharge. That's where we've seen a lot of our customers use it, which using Autocharge, then you can assign a flat rate that it's going to charge for each one of the zones. Or you can also have that data show up, let's say, in schedule. So you know that your technician has to go roughly 50 miles, 25 each way to make this trip to the customer. So you know to plan, okay, at 25 miles, it's going to be noon that he's going to go there, might need a little bit longer with traffic, those type of things. You can use that data to make smart decisions. So a very, very cool tool. Right, Sandy, don't you think? And it's both Google or Bing. You can decide which one you want to use.
Yeah, super cool. And I think a lot of customers are going to love having this.
I agree. So let's kind of talk about how it works, and then we'll do a demo after we walk through kind of the specifics. So first off, you're going to have what we call Zone Calculator setup options. And in there, you're going to specify, again, what are you using, Bing? Are you using Google? And then put in your API key that you have, app key that you get from Google or Bing. And again, some of those can be free or you can be paying for yours depending on how often you use it. There's a certain free level that they offer, but again, those are all choices and you probably already have that as an organization today. The other thing that you're going to specify in setup is what field within the customer location record do you want to be updating? Do you want to update your service area field or your service level ID field? And again, those are setup options that you can set. And if you as a customer are thinking, I already use those two fields, I prefer it updates X, a different field, we'd appreciate that feedback, and we can always incorporate and add new fields as you come across them or see that it would be a better fit for you to add those. From a setup screen, then you'll go on and put in your service centers or your service hubs. We kind of use that word interchangeably within Zone Calculator. And this is saying, I have technicians or I have branches, however you want to specify, at 10 different locations. And then you would go in and set up those different hubs and put in the physical address of those hubs, because again, we're going to want to calculate the distance from that hub to the customer location. So that one's a pretty easy screen. The next one is the zone definitions, and this is where you're going to specify your name of your zone. And again, I'm for ease of use, I'm just calling them zone 1, zone 2. You can call them whatever you want, it's user definable. But you're putting in the distance, and this is a round trip distance that you're putting in there. So again, I went from like 0 to 50, let's say that's zone 1, and then you would go, or I say 0 to 49, 50 to 100, or 0 to 9, 50, I should say, let me say that again. 0 to 49 is what I'm going to say is zone 1, and then we're going to say zone 2 is 50 to 99, and then zone 3 starts at 100. And again, user definable, so you can, make them in 10-mile increments, or you can make them, in 100-mile increments. That's your choice. It's all depending on how you want to break that down and charge for that information or see that information when you're working with it off of your customer locations. So once you have all those windows set up, those 3 windows, then we get into, you can run the process. Yay. So again, I'll be honest, setting up the 3 windows won't take you long at all. And then you're ready to go from running the process. And you can specify a range of customers that you're going to run this process for, or you can also run it by division, because I know a lot of you have your service centers are broke out by division. And so maybe one division's ready to run it, and so they can run it for themselves. And then when the other divisions have their setup data organized, or they're ready to record this information, they can go in and run it or rerun it if they've made changes to how they're going to set up their service house. The one thing I want to point out as well is we also run against latitude and longitude. And so on your customer location record, if you have latitude and longitude, it actually will use that first before it uses the customer location address. And so, because if you think of our customers who have someone out there, let's say it's a windmill or it's a wind turbine out in the middle of land, and doesn't really have that street address to go by, but it would have a latitude and longitude that you can enter in. And so if you have those updated on your customer locations, again, it'll use those first. If you don't have them, then it'll go into the physical customer address that you have on there. All right, so there's a couple more steps because we got all the data in. And then the next thing it's going to talk about is, again, we store that value on the customer location record, and you get to specify that in setup, as we mentioned previously. And then it's a matter of what you want to do with that data. Again, we have the Autocharge tool where you could use that zone information as part of your rule setup and apply it to your service invoices, or you can use it in other products, like schedule or displaying that information to help you make smart decisions. So that's overall how it works. Do we have any questions, Sandy, before we jump into the demo?
No questions so far. I think people are probably holding them until we get to the demo.
Everybody wants to see the demo. All right,
Yep.
let's go in and take a look. All right, Sandy, are you seeing my GP screen?
I am.
All right, so we're going to pull up some windows here. So we're going up under Setup Tools, wsTOOLS. Whoop, I better get into my, here's where we run the process, but I want to show you Setup first. So let's go down here to wsTOOLS, and we're going to go to Zone Calculator and into Setup. And of course, it's on my other windows. So let me bring it on over. All right, so the first thing is, like we said, you got to choose to do Bing or Google, right? Those are our 2 options that you can specify that we're going to run against. And I'm set up for Bing here. So we have the REST URL that it's going to be calling when it makes the call out to determine how many miles there is between the location of your customer and the location of your service hub. This is your key that you would specify. So whether it's a Google key or a Bing key, you're entering that information here. And then this option is on your customer location record, which field do you want updated? As we've worked with our different customers who have already needed this as part of their process, some have wanted the service area updated and some have wanted the service level field. So we give you the option to choose here. And then maximum distance, currently right now, that just says if it's greater than this distance, we're not going to calculate a zone. And an example, because you might think, okay, why do you need that for? So let's say you have organizations that you're out servicing and they're within your 25, 50, 100-mile radius. But actually who you send the bill to, because there would be a location set up for their bill to, is their corporate office hundreds of miles away. And what you could do is set up a maximum distance where if that corporate office is more than, in this case, 1,000 miles or 500 miles away, it's not going to calculate a zone because you're never going to do work at that bill to location. And so you can put those maximum distances there if you wish.
Cheryl,
Yeah.
there is a question. Somebody's wondering, where does that REST URL come from?
So this is the default. So this is a Bing or Google URL that you need to ping. And so this would come from Bing or from Google.
Okay, cool. And then just one quick question I had is that maximum distance, that's in miles.
Miles. Yep, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank
Yep.
you. That's it for now.
All right. And speaking of miles, Sandy, we have this
Yes.
option down here. So we've been talking zones, right? We're going to calculate zone 1, zone 2, whatever you set up your zones to be. You can also have it just go calculate mileage. So if you wanted to know it was 32 miles round trip between the service hub and the customer location, you could have 32 miles written back to your service area field versus saying it's a zone 1, zone 2. We have had customers make that request as well. So by checking this box right here, that would be updating your service locations in this case with mileage versus a zone. So some flexibility there as well. The last option here gets into logging messages, and this would be like if something doesn't seem to be calculating for you and you're just not sure why, marking this robust message logging will give you, if it's what data it's passing up to the URL, if it's finding the zone for you or not. And again, it'll help us troubleshoot with you as well if you run into issues. All right, so that is Zone Calculator Setup. Pretty small window, pretty easy to answer. And wouldn't you say, Sandy, that's a pretty quick one?
Yep, shouldn't take much time at all.
Well, the next ones, to be honest, are even a little bit smaller when it comes for entering data. Very important data, but not as much to enter in on the screen. So let's look at zone setup. And again, this is where you user define, you name your zones. I, for simplicity's sake, just said zone 1, zone 2, as you can see on the screen. And distance would be, like I said, 0 to 49 is my zone 1. Zone 2 would be 50 to 99. And so for me, they're just incrementing up all the way down to the maximum zone, my zone 7. As I said, 1,000 was my maximum, so really 751 to 1,000 is my last zone, and then anything greater than 1,000 would not get a zone assigned. So that kind of goes in with that setup option. Okay, and again, user-defined alphanumeric here as far as setting up your zone name, and then the distance, it would be your mileage, and that's round trip mileage there. And Sandy, you can stop me if you got more questions, but I'm just going to go to the next setup window.
Okay, I will.
All
No
right.
more so far.
Okay, so the hub setup. Again, this is where we put in, where are those different service centers? Where are your technicians leaving from? Because again, I know some of you have service centers where it's just where your technicians meet, where they can get their inventory. That's the kind of data that you can put in here. And for me, I've made my 3 hubs since I'm in North Dakota, Minnesota. I made them in Fargo, Grand Forks, and Bismarck. Those are my 3 hubs. So when I click to run this program, I am going to take the customer location address and compare it to these 3 hubs and see which one is closest, and then calculate the mileage and update my service location record based on that. And again, you can have as many hubs as you need to. I know some customers have 10+ hubs set up in their systems right now. All right, so that is all of the setup data. Now we're going to take a look. Let's take a look at a customer, because we'll focus in on one customer for this process, just while we run it here on the webinar. Olson Safety Equipment, and I'm in sample data, so customer 205, and we're going to see that we have a couple locations set up for this customer, so let me pull them up. First one, I just called Fargo. It's our Osgood location. For those of you that know the Fargo-Moorhead area, it probably rings a bell. And right now we can see that we don't have anything in the service area for this one. Second one's our main office, and this is in downtown Fargo. And then our third location is the warehouse location here in Holly, Minnesota. And right now, again, service area is open, so we are going to run our process, and then we'll take a look at that customer again. So you did see it because I accidentally went there earlier under Tools, wsTOOLS, Zone Calculator Process. And this window is pretty small too as far as the data that you have to enter in. It's basically what customer do you want to run for, or from and to, and then like I specified earlier, if you just want to run for a specific division, you can run that as well. Just all depends on how you want to break down your customers for getting the zones into them. So I'm just going to do my one customer that we've taken a look at. So customer 205, and I am going to click process. And this, if you have, tons of customers that you're running this process for, I should say tons of customer locations, this process could take a while. So it's something that, you don't want to start during the busiest part of your day and have it running on your screen. It might be something that you want to start when you leave for the day or leave for lunch, as well as, if you want to group them down by division, again, just giving you a chance to run a certain set of customers at a time. It does come up and tell you when it's complete, as well as I am logging, so it's recommending that I check my log for any error invalid addresses, because it could be that the address that you entered in might work great to send mail to them, but it's not a physical address that it can find, that Bing or Google can find. And so if you run into those, again, you can go out to their sites and just put in that address, and it'll tell you whether it's a valid address or not. And so that helps kind of from a debugging perspective. So I believe ours ran, so let's go back up to that customer here. I think I still have it open, I do. And let's go into the locations. And right here, so where this Osgood location that we talked about has zone 1, because this address here would have found the Fargo, and it's a downtown service center. And within, that 50-mile or 49-mile 0 to 49 zone was zone 1, it can make a round trip to that location. Same for the main office, but we find out that we are in zone 2 once you get out to Holly. So if you wanted to use this, let's say like for Autocharge, what we talked about, saying zone 2 would be a more expensive trip than the zone 1 trips. Is how you could specify that. Questions or comments on any of that?
Not so far.
Not so far, okay. Well, and I did mention, right, that you can use this also with Autocharge. And so for those of you that don't know what Autocharge is, I just want to do a quick overview of what that is. Autocharge is another one of our wsTOOLS, and Autocharge allows you to set up rules and then apply those rules to invoices. And so let me pull up here and GP back again. And I am going to go into the setup options for Autocharge. And I happen to have zone 1 already set up, so let's bring that up. And here you can see in the Autocharge setup window, specify your rule in the description, and the description is what would come over to the invoice. So you want to be careful with that, because that could be printed on their invoice. So you may want to say a zone 1 charge or a mileage charge, whatever your customers are used to it being called on their invoices. And then here in this middle section, you say who is going to get this charge. And for us, we're saying service area needs to be set to zone 1, right? That's what we set it to when we ran our program. And we're going to say it's a $25 flat trip charge. That's what we're going to have go on to their invoice. Let me save that. And then we're going to actually go in and take a look at that. I do have a service call set up here. Let me see, I might just do a find here to find my service call number. All right, got my service call pulled up. It's for the main office. Going into the invoice window, and I've already saved data onto this invoice just so we could pull it up quickly and see it. And then under additional, I'm going to choose add auto charge. And what it's doing is automatically applying that. So yep, I got it saved, so I'll say yes. So here you'll see it added that $25 charge based on the zone 1 criteria that we had set up. So adds the word travel charges like we talked about, $25. Trip charge is the type that we had set up within the setup. And those are automatically applied. So like you wouldn't have to go calculate for this customer and say, oh yeah, 205, this location, yep, we would have traveled so many miles to their location, so I need to charge X and manually type that in. This will automatically do those calculations for you based on your setup and running that process and apply that charge for your invoice. And then in this case, I can save my invoice and I'm ready to post it or do whatever I need to do for next steps. So that kind of brings us full circle on running the process, understanding all of the setup that goes into getting that ready to go, as well as applying it, say, to your auto charge. So
Cheryl, there is
yeah.
one more question. So if we had run the zone calculator and then later changed the zones, we could rerun it and it would get updated on those customer locations, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and then that would affect any new service call invoices from that point forward.
From that point forward, you are accurate, yes.
Okay, very cool. That's the only other question right now.
Yeah, because somebody might add a service hub at a later point in time, or you decide that you want to change your zone lengths, like 0 to 49. Maybe you decide, you know, I'm going to go 0 to 30 and 31 to 50 and, you know, break them down a little bit more. Yeah, at any point in time that you change that zone configuration, you would want to rerun the process and it'll re-update all of your location records.
Okay, cool.
Other questions, Sandy, or are we good?
We are good on the questions now, all caught up. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Well, I'm glad that we had questions. And it's fun to hear the things customers are looking for and want to implement. And again, if any of you have questions after seeing this demo or webinar, please reach out to us. Here's our contact information, phone number, sales@iscorp.biz. We have a sales team ready to assist and help answer questions, as well as if you want to go even a little more detail onto the products that we have, Sandy or I would definitely be ready and willing to walk you through those and explain how they can function and make your life easier. So again, thank you for attending our webinar today. Greatly appreciate that on behalf of the whole IS team, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.